All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the February 23rd Commissioners Student Advisory Council meeting. Just wanted to, we're not going to take an official roll call this morning because I can see in the participants who is all here, so we will take attendance that way. I wanted to turn it over quickly to the Commissioner to welcome you all, and then we will get moving right to our agenda because we do have a packed agenda. I know that many of you all have always asked us to kind of keep it short, but you asked for many really great items on the agenda, and we tried to put them all in there, and we're going to try to be mindful of your time. And so with that, I will pass it along to the Commissioner, and I will work on getting the PowerPoint ready to go.
Thanks, Tony. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you. We do have a packed agenda of really important items this morning, so I'm excited to jump into these conversations and work through them with you, but I don't want to take up any more time than I have to because we've got some important stuff to talk about. So I'm going to introduce Damien. Dr. Sweeney is on with us to do mental health check-in. Damien's done several of these with us and is a frequent flyer and much requested guest here at the Student Advisory Council. So Damien, go ahead and lead us through this.
All right, good morning. First off, can you see the screen and can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Okay, good morning, students. It's always a pleasure to be with you along with my colleagues at KDE. As always, this session is for all of us, right? So I'm asking for active participation with anybody on the call. All right, today we're doing a mental health check-in and then we'll talk a little bit about the effects of the pandemic on our students as well. All right, so this is a quick mindfulness exercise. Let's take a deep breath in and hold. And let's exhale and hold. You'll do this 3 more times. You can just follow the little dot on your screen, but make sure that you're taking those deep breaths in and then holding and then exhaling and then holding. I'm a cyclist and I love to be on a bike, and on the platform that I use, I have a coach that talks about inhaling courage and exhaling doubt, and that's what today's about. We've got to inhale courage and know that we are on the right track with our own mental health, and that we can get the support that we need if we ask adults and we reach out. We also need to inhale courage by knowing that it's up to all of us to destigmatize mental health concerns, and then exhale any doubt that comes with any of those things, right? As we finish up, just repeat after me. I am enough, all right? I am enough, and you are. You are enough, and that's the message that I would give to everybody on this call. We're gonna do a quick Jamboard. So I'm gonna put this link in the chat box real quick. Let's see here.
Damien, I'm going to go ahead and just share my PowerPoint to get back on schedule here, if you don't mind, and that because I've got your PowerPoint on there.
Yeah, I'm gonna toggle between screens real quick because I've got to go to a Jamboard.
Perfect.
So if you all can go to that Jamboard, then you should just be able to just put in what is one word that describes how you are feeling today. All right, and we should all be able to see as you enter this. Don't worry about that second screen, just focus on this first one. What's one word that describes how you are feeling today? You can do this by using, you can use your finger if you have a touch screen, and you can create a text box, whatever you'd like to do. And you can also just go to the pen over here on the left. So if you see my screen, you can go to the pen. Again, you can create a text box, you can create a sticky note, anything. It's one word that describes how you're doing today. All right, we're seeing some exhausted, some stressed. All right, we're also seeing some encouraged, some anxious, some anxieties in there. We've got somebody that's enthusiastic and happy. We've got some folks that are busy. Okay, all right. We're going to give you an opportunity to share a little bit more later on. But Tony, feel free to go ahead and share your screen at this point. Let me stop sharing.
All right, going ahead.
Yep, perfect. Okay, and you can just hit that next, you can hit the, there you go. All right, so so before we get into some of the different ways that the pandemic has affected our mental health, I do want to remind you that we can all flip the switch. Okay, so we really do have the power to see our challenges differently and convert our anger into fuel to be better. If we are angry, if we are upset, if we're frustrated, if we any kind of negative emotion that we might have, we have that power to change it. All right, let's hit the next one. All right, so your power to choose how you feel will determine your quality of life. All right, so read that again. So your power to choose how you feel will determine your quality of life. So if you choose to feel happy, what quality of life is that going to produce? What about comfortable in your own skin? What about sad or lonely or uncomfortable? Our choices, again, they help determine that quality of life. Okay, let's hit the next one. And then, of course, this potentially excludes mental health diagnoses. But even with these, you can work to choose happiness and connectedness every single day. All right, let's get to the next one. So you can hit it again. So at one point, we had more than 90% of enrolled learners, so almost 1.5 billion young people worldwide out of education. So that created a toll on our mental health for sure. Let's hit the next one. We can anticipate that there will be considerable difficulties adjusting to normal life when school resumes. So, so we're very hopeful that school will resume soon. And if not soon, that it will resume in person in the fall. And we have to anticipate that there will be some difficulties adjusting back to normal life when it does. Okay. And then some of the different measures that we took, they can result in social isolation and an abusive home. One of the first things that I, as a school counselor, as a former school counselor and somebody that works with mental health quite a bit, one of the first things that I was concerned about is, you know, we have so many kids that are living in abusive or neglectful or just simply unloving homes. And these things can be exacerbated during this time of economic uncertainty and stress. So we have to be aware that many people's mental health can be really affected by some of those things that were exacerbated during this time as well. All right, let's head to the next one. Okay. Stroke. All right. If you can go back. There you go. One more.
It's going a little crazy on me here.
Okay.
I don't know what is going on. Okay, hold on. I don't know what's going on. It's
just
like
hit your back arrow. Your left arrow.
Is that, are we back or is that?
No. Just hit the space bar 2 times. More. Go again. And hit it once. There you go. Okay, it's okay. Just go to the next one. That's fine.
Okay.
All right.
It's just disappearing for some reason.
That is interesting. Okay. Well, let me tell you what it was going to say. All right, I've got it right here. So, so the pandemic may worsen existing mental health problems and lead to more cases among children and adolescents. And since most mental health disorders begin in childhood, it is essential that any mental health issues be identified early and treated. And left untreated, they can lead to serious health and emotional problems. So we're really concerned that, you know, many of our kids, they get care for their mental health concerns in school. And since they don't have access, many of our students don't have access to that in-school care. this can honestly lead to some serious health and emotional problems. And while trauma-informed practices were widely used before the pandemic, they're likely to be even more important as students experience economic hardships and grieve the loss of family and friends. So when we're talking about trauma-informed practices, this is a really key term that all of you should know. When we're talking about that, it's really important to know that we shift the conversation from what's wrong with you, what's wrong with you, to a what happened to you. And we even shifted a little bit more to what's wrong with you. Okay, so we're asking those questions in our schools, and that's going to be even more important for us to ask those questions as we move beyond the pandemic. Okay. All right. We also have to think about the achievement and opportunity gaps that have just persisted over time. So school shutdowns could not only cause disproportionate learning losses for Black and Latinx students, compounding existing gaps, but they could also lead more of them to drop out. And this could have long-term effects on these children's long-term economic well-being and on the U.S. economy as a whole. So we have to think about how our achievement and opportunity gaps continue to happen and can widen even more during this time. All right. Okay. So one solution is this idea of social emotional learning for all. So as a school counselor, often we are asked to lead social emotional learning sessions, and we are happy to do so, and we love to model that for teachers. But it can't just be up to our school counselors to lead social emotional learning. It has to be something that all of us own, right? So all the way from district leadership to school leadership to teachers, everybody, to KDE, we all have to own it. Let's hit the space bar real quick. All right, so research shows that social emotional learning is associated with the positive impact on important mental health variables that increase children's attachment to school and motivation to learn and reduce risky behaviors. All right, so it's affecting all of this. Let's hit it again. And then students participating in the SEL program showed improved classroom behavior, and increased ability to manage stress and depression, and better attitudes about themselves, others, and school. All right, one more time. Okay, got you. Don't worry. All right, and then SEL program can have a positive impact up to 18 years later on academics, conduct problems, emotional distress, and drug use. And finally, there are statistically significant associations between SEL skills in kindergarten and key outcomes for young adults years later. SEL decreased the likelihood of living in or being on a waiting list for public housing, receiving public assistance, having any involvement with police before adulthood, and even spending time in a detention facility. So it's got all kinds of just positive impacts. All right, we're going to go to, Tony, I'm going to take over real quick, and we're going to go to our last Jamboard.
Sounds good.
Let's go back to that Jamboard. And what do you think is most important for KDE to know and understand about student mental health right now? If you can put this on our last Jamboard. What is the most important thing that we need to know or understand about your mental health, your friends' mental health, your classmates, your peers? What do we need to take with us from this conversation? Okay. Some students don't quite know how to ask for help. Okay, it's good to know. We often psych ourselves out. We think we're okay when we aren't. Interesting. I'm interested to know if you have suggestions on how we can help support this idea of helping students realize, like, when you aren't okay, it's totally acceptable to just say that and own it, and like I said, reach out for help. All right, we have somebody else that said it's a complex topic that needs personal understanding to help treat. Adults have a huge influence on the mood of children. I think we all do. There's power in a smile. We know that if we see somebody, especially our leaders, smiling, welcoming us, being positive, then that's going to affect us. So I completely agree with that. All right, ending another school year. Can't see what that says. From who I talk to, students are struggling and they've asked for help but aren't getting it. That's concerning. Wonder what's going on with that. All right, and last couple, a lot of students are working to survive the difficulties of life during the pandemic. School cannot be a priority for many young people because mere survival is. Yes, I would encourage you to take a look at, there's a video called The Learning Brain versus the Survival Brain. And it just talks about how, you know, when we're in that fight or flight mode, it's very, very hard to learn. Okay. All right. How teachers run the classroom can have a large impact on if students feel comfortable. All right. Last couple, some students are getting unfairly punished for having bad mental health days. Okay. And then we need to make clear the resources available. All right. Very good. Thank you for that feedback. Last thing I want to ask you. First off, I want to tell you, so you can text a smiley face to this phone number that's on the slide deck on your screen. And if you're just looking for a positive text, a daily positive text, something that's just going to make you smile, something that's just uplifting, again, feel free to text a smiley face to this phone number. It's going to be power of positivity. I would not suggest entering an email address or anything like that. This is totally free, but it will allow you to get just a positive text. I'm also interested in feedback. As you probably know by now, I love music. And one of the songs that I've been thinking about creating a lesson around is called Defying Gravity. It's from the Wicked soundtrack. So I want to know answers to these questions. And if you want to email me, I would love that. I put my email address here. But if this song was used in a lesson, would it help kids understand that they can be resilient? Would it help them know that they can overcome bullying? And would it help them understand that they don't have to accept limits that others put on them? Right. So thank you for joining me today for our quick mental health check-in. I'm here for you always. If there's anything I can do to support your efforts, again, shoot me an email. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Damian. We appreciate it. Students, we have just a couple of moments. If you wanted to raise your hand, any feedback that you would like to provide instantly, I can go ahead and provide a few minutes for that. If not, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is one of your fellow Student Advisory Council members and Dr. Woods Tucker. All right, I will go ahead and do that. And I do have a slide. I'm going to move back onto back to the agenda there. So Anastasia Parentos and Dr. Woods Tucker, you can take it away with your equity project presentation.
Good morning, everyone. This is certainly one of my favorite times of the month, our favorite times of any part of the week, and that's spending time with you, our Student Advisory Committee members, and of course, my colleagues here at the Kentucky Department of Education. And I'm excited to say just a few words before I turn the project description over to Anastasia. About 2 months ago, Anastasia and I began conversations about how our students, particularly our Student Advisory Committee members, can create some type of video or some type of resource as a tool in our toolbox here at KDE, where students from different ethnic and quote unquote racial backgrounds and from different parts of the Commonwealth can come together and to begin engaging in a good way questions about race and other equity matters. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Anastasia. I think she has a small PowerPoint and she'll describe the project in more detail. Anastasia.
Thank you, Dr. Woodstucker. So as he said, the project is just going to be a free resource that the KDE can send out to all schools in the Commonwealth, so they can create an environment where no matter the race, gender, ethnicity, ability of a student, keeps them behind. And so some of the thoughts that we had for coming up with this project were being able to share stories from the people in the Commonwealth. This whole project came about because when I first heard Dr. Woodstucker's story, when we first met him in October, I was very moved, and I knew many other people would be moved. So I kind of came up with a few ideas and reached out to Dr. Woodstucker, and this is kind of what we've started to come up with. And once I share, I would love to get your guys' feedback. So our first resource that we're going to start is a podcast or newspaper articles, having people who are Commonwealth share their stories of how they've dealt with the issue of inequality. So it can be the members of the KDE, it could be a teacher that we have who we've heard their story, it could be us students, because hearing each other's stories is the best way to change. And then a 5-minute video is just explaining what equality is and what we can do to spread it. So it'd be a video similar to what we did for the Mask Up campaign, where we're all involved, we all get to share this video, and we're hoping to maybe do the 5-minute video first this year and maybe see if we can get it done by the end of the year before all of our seniors leave. And then the last thing was, once we gather in groups again, to have a simulation. I go to a program every year. It's called Kentucky United Nations Assembly. And there we have a big simulation. It's typically a human rights simulation, and it's very moving. And I felt that would be perfect for us. Once we can go back in schools, we can visit different schools, and we share powerful stories that we've heard, and we let the students feel what those students felt through us. And so just a few questions that I have for you guys is this a project that you guys are interested in? And what other ideas, if you have any, would you like to see us do? And do you have any other opinions, questions? Please feel free to share. Yeah.
All right. Anybody want to add to the conversation? Raise your hand or put some comments in the chat. I'll be happy to moderate. All right, Jack. We'll start with you.
Hi, yeah, I think it's a really good idea. I was just looking at the questions. I would be really interested whenever we do get back into groups and doing that simulation. I think that'd be a really good idea, and I'd look forward to that.
Okay, Anna.
Well, I just wanted to say that I really like the idea of sharing people's stories, because that's where you really see people want to change. I mean, I was kind of worried that this project was going to be just telling others what equity is and like what to look out for and what not to do, but that kind of doesn't fuel the passion to have a humane society in which we treat everyone equally and we offer the same opportunities for everyone. So I'm really glad that you guys are focusing on sharing people's stories.
Thanks, Anna. Real quick, sorry, but that's what I was going for. I didn't want it to just be a talk about equality, and part of the reason that I really wanted to do this was I wanted to show that equality isn't just for people of different skin tones, it's for ethnicities and different genders, because everybody is worth having the same education. So I'm glad it's coming off as sharing other stories and not just showing what equality is.
All right. Thank you all for that. Caleb.
So first, let me say that I am very, very much in support of this project, and I'm hopeful I'll be able to help out in some way. I also want to say that, kind of like what Anna said, with telling people's stories, it's so important to amplify, the concerns and the voices of people. And so I think that, focusing on that aspect of the project Not only will it be an excellent way to do that, to amplify concerns and voices, it'll also be a great way to fuel change. And I do believe that storytelling is one of the greatest methods for fueling change. And I really appreciate your emphasis on all different sorts of equity and equality with this.
Yeah. Caleb, if you're not available, we're going to find you. I'm going to come and find you to make sure you are available, and any other student who is interested in this project. Another thing that Anastasia and I talked about, we didn't fully use this term, it's asset framing, asset building. Dr. Sweeney, Damien talked about flipping the switch. We have challenges regardless of our background, our zip code, our status in life, the amount of melanin in our skin. We all have challenges, but it's up to us to define our day. It's up to us to flip that switch. It's up to us to fight to establish happiness if that's what we want to do. So these stories could ultimately be a huge part of asset framing. And it's really about looking and defining people by their aspirations, not by their challenges. We're going to recognize those challenges. And I really appreciate Anastasia's deep comments, and also Anna's comments about we don't want to just talk about what is equity, what's equality. We want to hear people's stories. We want to hear how folks have dealt with these challenges in their lives. Now, we would love to put this 5-minute video together, and Anastasia, you and I haven't talked about this. We'll debrief probably next week. This could be 1-minute vignettes about you telling your story about something you had to overcome, whether being a member of the LGBT community, whether being a person who is looking at his or her gender identification and what that challenge and what that triumph has been. Students who are dealing with coming out regarding their sexuality. So we want to be, again, as Anastasia said, and obviously, as Anna said a couple minutes ago, we want to be inclusive about this as we look at this huge umbrella of diversity and equity and inclusion.
And ditto to everything that has been said. Obviously, you know, from a communication standpoint, we're here to support you. You know, we're here to help you with any kind of the video aspect of that. And I just absolutely love this project. You all know storytelling is my thing, and what we've been striving for at the department. I also think that you will see, we've been having talks here internally at KDE about this as well. And I think you will see something very similar happening internally at the Department of Education as well. Looks like Trevin, you have your hand up as well.
Yeah,
excited to hear from Trevin. Go ahead, Trevin.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I definitely support it because here in Eastern Kentucky, we don't have as much diversity as a place like Louisville or Lexington. And giving those stories and not just telling what equity is, giving those stories will make it more heartfelt. And I feel that it'll make more Eastern Kentuckians listen since we haven't really been exposed to the type of diversity like Lexington or Louisville has in other places across the state.
Yeah.
And Trevin, what I really like about that is so heartfelt and genuine. I'm from Arkansas, and my home state just south of you. You know, folks can have certain stereotypes about Arkansas because in parts of Arkansas, it's very segregated, And this project allows students like you and others who can tell stories of your efforts to be more inclusive. And you can tell stories about how important it is, because life is going to go beyond high school, how important it is to be more diverse in our thinking, to be more inclusive in our thinking. And I've always appreciated, Trevor, the comments that you've made from the first time I jumped on the call, and all of your comments as well, since I first jumped on the call back in October.
Great. Jack, I see that your hand is still up. Is that still from before, or did you have additional comments?
No, that was still from before. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. All right, Anastasia, do you have anything else you'd like to add or any other feedback, or are we ready to move to the next item on the agenda? Or I guess I should ask Dr. Glass, do you have anything you'd like to say about the project?
Just that I'm excited about where it's headed. I appreciate Dr. Woods Tucker, Anastasia, the work that you've done. It's exciting, and please let us know how we can support it going forward.
I just want to say thank you for everybody for your feedback, and hopefully we're able to get this started soon. So hopefully by our next meeting, we might have some more information for you guys.
Perfect. And I'll put some information on the exit slip as well today, which we'll send out, and hopefully I can get some help you get some feedback on that as well. All right. So the next item on the agenda that you all had asked for is just a general teaching and learning post-pandemic item. So I'd like to invite Dr. Glass and Dr. Woods Tucker to join us back on screen to just talk in general. There really isn't a PowerPoint slide for this. Several of you all, when building this agenda, had brought up some concerns just about falling behind. I think 6 or 7 of you all had asked for this agenda item. So I just thought I'd let Dr. Glass kind of lead the discussion and see where it goes. Dr. Glass.
Thanks, Tony. I think there's been a lot of conversation around learning loss, quote unquote learning loss, and what students have missed out on over this past year, and a big focus on academic learning loss, and really an effort by education policymakers and those concerned about equity, organizations concerned about equity, to try and measure learning loss. And we saw something around that come out just yesterday, which we'll talk about a little later, requirement from the federal government that we continue with state testing this year. It really out of a desire to be able to measure how much students were behind compared to where they maybe would have been had we not had this pandemic experience. Certainly, there have been very different learning experiences for students that have been in remote or NTI learning modes for this past year, or who have had to shift to them for some extended period of time. But even students that are in person, the learning experiences are also different with all the masking and procedures that are in place. So school was different this year. We did receive a large infusion of dollars from the federal government that will be distributed to school districts around the state that's intended to support districts in restoring in-person learning experiences. But at KDE, we've really focused a lot on also asking our districts to consider, and we've created an incentive or a bonus additional funding opportunity if they use those federal dollars to create experiences for students, or provide what we call direct supports and services to students. So things that instead of using dollars to do things like replace ventilation systems or expand a building, they can use part of the dollars for that, but primarily we want the dollars to go toward creating meaningful learning opportunities for students. So thinking about how could we do extended day, extended year, expanded summer school programming, coming back to school early, and also creating greater extracurricular outside of school opportunities for students. How can we make learning engaging, more meaningful for students? I think my greatest fear is that we put all of our students back in school buildings and we subject them to test prep, drill and kill, high content focused memorization, learning experiences, when really I think what our students and our teachers have been craving most are learning experiences that are engaging, that are meaningful, that are relationship based. And certainly we've got work to do on any content or factual information that maybe students weren't exposed to that we have to catch up on. But I think primarily what I'm saying is, as commissioner, I really think our schools need to think about how they can restore a love of learning and a love of school to kids as they come back or are already back dealing with this pandemic. So those are some of my thoughts just on this concept of learning loss and what we may be experiencing going forward. I want to invite Dr. Woods Tucker on. I know he's also given a great deal of thought to what learning might look like or could look like or should look like on the other side of this. Dr. Woods Tucker, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Glass. That is a major question, and I want to take some time, and Commissioner Glass and I have not had a conversation about this. If you all have not read Commissioner Glass's statement regarding the president's decision, President Biden's decision, and our upcoming Secretary of Education's decision to continue with testing, and it's not that we are against testing at all. We think testing has its place. Dr. Glass talked very courageously and heartfelt about why testing is not the way to get us out of this situation, this post-pandemic crisis we're in right now, and that is not a way to restore learning that has been lost. So, Commissioner Glass, I want to personally thank you for that. So, no, I don't think the way to do this is for additional testing, not at all. But it's going to be a huge community effort by students, teachers, and community members to come up with creative ways during the summer to restore opportunities for learning. And it's going to be a sacrifice because I would surmise, no decision has been made, that we're going to have extended learning opportunities in the summer and in the fall. And how do we encourage students to take advantage of those learning opportunities? But Commissioner Glass, I would also like to pause for a second and hear what suggestions that students have and how they're feeling. And what can we do to help our students make up this learning loss? And we know the commissioner and our Kentucky Board of Education and Dr. Sweeney are huge proponents of ensuring that we are addressing the social, emotional, and the social and emotional affect that has come to bear on you all. Not being in school, not having that socialization, missing out on those traditional things like prom and homecoming and other things. But what can we do? I mean, I know that we're going to work hard, and Dr. Glass has started this already in conversing with superintendents about what will the end of the year activities look like. How can we safely have prom? How can we safely have graduation exercise? And so we're thinking about that, and we know how important that is. But students, Tony, if we have a couple minutes, if we can hear from students about what ideas can they give us in terms of helping to end this year on a very high note and looking at addressing addressing learning loss.
Absolutely, Dr. Woods Tucker. We have a couple hands raised already. I will go to Miles first. Miles.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So to talk about the extended learning in the summer and in the fall, I feel like one of the ways to get students motivated for those programs is to encourage outside learning. I don't know how much field trips are possible, but definitely offering those opportunities to go to different places and to use those different like the science building and things like that to encourage learning, I think would definitely get students motivated to want to go.
Thanks, Miles. And we're working in partnership with the Lieutenant Governor and Commissioner Glass. Is it called Parks and Recreation here, outdoor learning, to have some of those extended opportunities?
Yeah, the state parks have been really interested in trying to find ways to support student experiences, and then we've been working on again that sort of incentive or guidance document for districts that really emphasizes, Miles, the things that you're raising. How do schools create meaningful learning opportunities for students, and those can and should include extracurricular experiences, trips, cultural experiences, science experiences. We've got, again, a large infusion of federal dollars, and how can we use that to take students on a trip somewhere or get to experience something or see something that otherwise they would not have had. I really think that our students have gone without and missed out on so much over this past year, and our thinking now can be, how can we make these really next 2 years make up for that, but also have, if this past year was a really terrible experience, how can we make the next 2 years really awesome experiences for kids?
Absolutely. Thank you, Miles. Roheen. And I will try to remember to identify where everybody's from if I can remember. So Miles was from Oldham County. Roheen is from Jefferson County. Roheen?
Hi. So this is more about like the virtual learning stuff, but at my school, I've noticed that like some teachers for virtual learning have been doing like straight on lectures where they're just talking for 15 minutes and everyone's kind of bored and disengaged. And then other teachers have been doing like small group lessons for like maybe 15 or 20 minutes with like half the class. So that way people are like more engaged with their teachers and they're actually like sort of required to discuss with teachers. And I think that's one way we can encourage students to sort of get back into the zone of learning and get engaged with class. Because right now, I know me and my friends, we're just kind of like bored with school because I know like everyone has their cameras off, like the teachers are just talking for 50 minutes. We just kind of lose interest over time.
Yeah. Roheen, are you a junior this year or a senior? I don't remember.
Junior.
You're a junior. Khan Academy has, are you familiar with Khan Academy and how has, or if Khan Academy, and this is for other students, has Khan Academy been an integral role or any role at all in terms of your learning this school year?
For me personally, in my classes, I don't think teachers have really recommended it too much. I'm sure students know about it, but it's not something that's really been pushed.
Okay.
Okay. Logan's in Fayette County.
Hey, so I know you're kind of talking about, I guess, like a summer enhancement program and moving into the fall. But I guess I like understand that, and I guess I have two sides to that, and I really understand the reasoning behind the summer thing. Coming from, I guess, a student viewpoint of, like, we know we're behind. Yeah. We like through this year, we've just had a lot of loss. Our prom's been taken away. Graduation was taken away. My classroom's been taken away. I've been virtual for about a year now, coming up soon in March. So looking at from a student's perspective and saying we're gonna like have this summer program for students to take advantage of, if it's going to look like this kind of classroom, we're gonna lecture, we're gonna sit there, we're gonna learn, that's kind of like taking our summers away. And I think, you know, I feel that we kind of set the standards, like we set the standards of learn. So we set the standards of loss for our students. So I guess with that being said, is it okay to, you know, not know parts of, you know, your calculus? But it does go further into like elementary school and stuff and basic fundamentals. But could we make up for that in our next year of school, than having to, I guess, add more school and kind of, I guess, take away more stuff from students? So I don't want to be like, you know, Debbie Downer or whatever, but I think that is what a lot of students would view it as.
Yeah, and I think that's our greatest fear, is that, again, we create these extended school year, extended school day, summer school programs, and what we end up doing is putting kids in rows and talking at them, or even worse, put them in front of a screen again, in some form. So if I were a superintendent, and what I've been stressing to our superintendents in the state is, you can have a summer program, but make it a meaningful learning experience for students. I mean, there's all kinds of things. We've been so disconnected from each other, and for opportunities to interact and opportunities to experience things that are meaningful, that are aesthetic, like they create an emotional reaction and something that's a powerful memory. We missed out on so many of those kinds of opportunities, and this could be a chance with a summer program to create those. I think about the Governor's Scholar Program that I know a lot of you are familiar with, but only a very small number of students in the state get to experience that. To get to go to a college campus for a period of time and get to hear from some of the brightest people, professors and professionals that we have in our state, to get to interact with students from different backgrounds and parts of the state. What if a school district could create that kind of experience for every kid that wanted it? That's the kind of thing that I would like to see us expand, do more of. I wouldn't blame any of you if your school district said, we're having a summer program and you're going to sit in a hot building in rows and somebody's going to talk at you, or we're going to put you on, another automated learning platform, that you didn't show up. I wouldn't blame you at all. I think that's something that all of you can do with your local school administration, is tell them the kind of experience that you'd like to have, that you want them to work on designing with you. So I completely agree with those points, Logan. Thanks so much.
All right. Next, we will go to Anastasia.
So in Oldham County, we've been virtual and in person. And so I've kind of gotten to see both sides of the learning. And so, and knowing kids in JCPS and other counties who have not been able to go back in person at all, I definitely think having an interactive summer program, especially for K through 5, is definitely what they need, because they're losing their social aspect of life, and they're starting to definitely K through 3 are definitely starting to fall behind with curriculum, being of the fact that kids don't really pay attention online, especially younger kids, because they have a shorter attention span. And so having them be in a classroom is definitely what they need, but falling behind is not worth losing 2 years and then having to go back another year and reteach everything. So I think an interactive summer program is really what they need, so they get to hang out with people that they might be friends with and just get to have a social interaction is definitely what they need.
Yeah, 1,000% agree. And I have a 7-year-old and an 8-year-old at home who have been in remote NTI school since March. So my son just started in Fayette County. Their K through 2 went back in person just this week. So we've experienced firsthand we're grateful for all the support that the teachers in Fayette County provide, and they worked really hard to try and make the online learning as engaging and meaningful as we could. But I can check and see what my kids are doing during the course of the day, and they start to drift. Like, even though they're supposedly in class, they can open up YouTube videos and watch other things, and I know that they're doing that. It's just not the same. And I really hope that the experiences that our schools create for students are meaningful, authentic, engaging, powerful memories for students, where we get our students to fall in love with learning, fall in love with school. That's what we've got to have more of. Oops, Tony, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Back to the western part of the state and get Drake Calhoun. She is a sophomore at Callaway County.
So I know I've said this before. Oh, my camera's off. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I know I've said this before, but I think one of the biggest issues I've seen among my peers and even in myself is apathy. And like we've had so many things taken away this past year that it's been really hard to remember, what exactly we're working towards, whether that's like post-secondary or trade school or a career. I think a lot of us have just like lost sight of that. And so when we look at creating like an engaging summer program or just getting us caught up, I think it's going to be really important to figure out how can we reinstate enthusiasm and an eagerness to learn when, we've just kind of lost sight of the end goal. So I think that'll be really important.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. And I think this this concept of engagement we have to keep putting that back at the forefront. And it's, for me, I think it's really about creating learning experiences that are like life and that are full of life. So we all have had learning experiences that were not like life outside of school, and that were lifeless, right? And if you're only focused on transferring content knowledge from a text to somebody's head or from a speaker to somebody's head, that's not really what life is like, and it's not a very engaging or meaningful experience. But if we can shift toward problem and project-based approaches where students are working together on problems or projects that are meaningful to them, that are meaningful to their community, where you're getting to do something engaging, to collaborate, to solve a complex problem, to create, to be creative. Those are, I think, transferable skills that have greater impact on life and work and quality of life going forward, and at the same time they create a greater engagement or they're better learning experiences to go through. So I think if districts create summer programs or even early return programs for students, they can do those, create those. I think also that a lot of our kids, and this is an equity question, a lot of our kids in the course of the summer have powerful, engaging learning experiences. Like their parents take them to places where they get swim lessons, or they go to museums, or they go camping and hiking. They get out, they do things. Those are memories. Those are powerful learning experiences for students. Not every family has that sort of experience or opportunity. So that's, for me, it's an equity question too. Not just our affluent students should be the ones having engaging, meaningful, fun learning experiences over the summer, but how can our school districts create those for everybody that's in the community?
Okay, and then we'll go stay in the western part of the state and go up to Jack in Marshall County.
Okay. So I have a couple things I want to say. First, I'm pretty sure that we all can agree that virtual learning is easier than doing in-person learning because either you have less work or the work's you can just look it up online. It's overall just easier. So, okay, something messed up on my screen. But I've actually been hybrid since the beginning of January. Sorry. And it's been a transition, and I'm actually going back 5 days a week starting March 10th. So I'm really hoping that like our school doesn't just cram everything on you or throw everything on you right away. And that we kind of ease into it at least a week or two just to kind of get us acclimated, and just like it's the first, couple weeks of school, because to an extent it's going to feel like that because we've been waking up 8, 9 o'clock on 3 days a week, for me especially. So that's the main thing about like NTI and going back to school. Another thing that I was thinking about is prom and some of those activities. And people are gonna have prom anyway, because I've seen on social media that a couple of schools are having out of school proms, and anybody can go. There's no regulation, or like they're not having anything like that. So I don't know what the trade-off would be with just having it at school with like to where it's a little safer, being at school than if you have it at someone's house in the middle of nowhere kind of thing, like a lot of the places in Western Kentucky are. Lastly,
yeah, go ahead, Zach. No, please, go ahead and finish.
All right, so I was over like the summers, we do at my church, we do different mission projects on Mondays. And my favorite one we go to every single year is the Boys and Girls Club of America in a city kind of near us. And the environment there is just so fun. And there's people from all ages that go there and just have a good time. You know, they're learning. There's classrooms that they learn at. They have a game room. And if there's any way, I don't know how we could do it, but if there's any way we could have those at either elementary schools for the younger kids, if we have to pick, I would think that the elementary schools would be most important. If there's any way we can do that to get them that social interaction and just to play games with their friends and to maybe make up for all the time lost, I feel like that'd be a great idea. And, you know, me and my friends, we've already kind of planned stuff for this summer. Like, we're going to have a football tournament. We're going to do all this kind of stuff because we didn't get to that whole semester and most of the fall semester too because of sports and everything. So if there's any way we can kind of do that, I feel like that'd be really, really productive.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Great points. So I want to come back to the sort of proms and graduations point because it's coming up a lot as schools start thinking about how to handle that, and they're getting demands from students and parents to have those. I think that we certainly can have in-person graduations. In fact, school districts figured out, a lot of school districts around the country figured out how to do that safely last spring. So we can have distancing, we can limit attendance, and we may be in a better place come May. If you look at the community transmission numbers, they've been falling. We'll have far more people vaccinated. It'll be a much safer event to have. So we're not out of the woods. You can't just pretend that this is still not happening because there are still people at risk. But it'll be a lot safer than it was last fall or last spring. So I think that's coming into view. On the prom thing, I think that that's also something. If we can delay a little further to have the community transmission numbers continue to fall. If we can get more people vaccinated to reduce the risk, that both of those things are make something like a prom safer. We can also consider doing things like can we delay prom? So can we wait until these numbers start to fall and our vaccinations are higher? Can we move the event outdoors to make it safer? Can we ask participants to I don't know how this will go over, like dance with the date that you came with, or don't get really close with people. It's a social distancing aspect of it, which I know is hard to do. But is there a way to think that through so we can still have the event? It may look a little bit different, but we can still move forward with that. I don't think, and I would not recommend any district, just because of community pressure, just have prom in the gym, pack the students in, and pretend like we're still not emerging from a pandemic. I don't think that's smart, and I wouldn't care what anybody in the community said. I would say we're not doing that. And I don't care if you as a parent want to organize that and have that at your house, that's on you. But we're not endorsing that as the public school system, and we're not creating that risk in our community because of that. So I think there are safe ways for us to have these kinds of experiences and events. We just have to be thoughtful about it. We have to be a little more patient about it, but I think that we can get there. I really like the point that you made around these experiences for students, the things that you'd missed out on, like the extracurriculars. Again, I really hope that our district leaders put their emphasis and energy and resources into creating those kinds of experiences for students, where we will catch up on the content that was lost. We'll catch up on the quote unquote learning that was lost. We will get there. But right now, what are from a mental health standpoint and from an emotional learning standpoint, what we've missed out on so much is that connectedness, fun, and being together as a community of learners in our schools again. So I think whatever schools decide to do, that needs to be a major focus, restoring those kinds of experiences.
Yes, sir. I agree. Thank you.
All right. We go up to E-Town and get Gavin. Is a sophomore at Elizabethtown Independent High School.
Can you all hear me?
I can.
Okay. So I'm gonna touch a little bit on prom at E-Town, and then I'm gonna switch gears because Mr. Glass is just talking about that. At E-Town, I know we are currently planning on having prom. I don't know where, or sorry, I don't know when, but they're not having it in the gym. I think they're planning it on having it at like a farm where there's more space and thus more space for people to go. Like, so they're not all packed jamming into the gym, because all of the E-Town students would not be able to fit in the gym. So I think they are planning it on having it somewhere else. So if there's a solution to that, I guess. But changing gears, back to like hybrid online learning, that kind of thing. I know interactive learning online is much more better for me, because I'm in 2 AP classes this year. I'm in AP Bio and AP World. In AP Bio, that's a lecture class. And that is, if you ask me what I'm supposed to be learning in AP Bio, I can't tell you because I don't know. I can tell you gene replication. That's about it. But if you ask me what we're learning in AP World, I could probably go deep into what's happening in the French Revolution, because my AP World teacher is much more hands-on. He'll have us do projects with other students, and he's bouncing off the walls. He's really like, there's a lot going on. But I know a lot of students don't learn very well with lecture, and especially with the online hybrid going on. A lot of students don't know what we're supposed to be learning in the lecture classes. So I just think that if we are to do a summer program, and I know a lot of people have already said this, I just think it's important that it is more interactive so that students can get more out of it if they were to go to that.
I like the idea of having the prom or other spring events at outdoors or at a farm. I've heard some school leaders start talking about using the football field for that, or using other outdoor community spaces. I mean, this whole notion of time and space and people and place are all factors that we should take into account. So again, if we can delay prom or other kinds of in-person events until our community transmission rates are much lower, that means that the prevalence of the virus in the community is at a much lower level. So it's pretty safe. Like, we don't worry about leprosy or something because it doesn't exist in our community. So it's not something that you're afraid of. So if we can get the numbers of positivity rate for COVID down, that makes a difference. So if we can wait, if we can limit the amount of time that people are at these events, so don't do a 6-hour event where people are mixed groups or interacting. Limit that where it's still a meaningful experience, but take that into consideration. Space, how can we create spacing of out of people, and then all of the other virus mitigation strategies that are in place. I think we can get there, and then the place element, having things outdoors because of the the natural ventilation or moving of respiratory droplets away that comes with an outdoor space makes that a much safer place as well. So my professional opinion is I would be planning for I would be planning for proms and other spring events. I would be planning on making them outdoors. I'd be also planning on making them awesome. Go all out, pull out all the stops to make this a really great experience. Again, acknowledging that our students have missed out on so much of this the past spring. So keep moving forward, but figure out a way to make it a great experience.
All right, we'll go up back to Jefferson County, and then work our way to Eastern Kentucky. So Layla from Ballard High School in Jefferson.
Hi guys, good morning. So first I just wanted to say I really appreciate Dr. Glass that you've sort of given us the opportunity to talk about these experiences and sort of, I guess, gauge how we're doing throughout our community. And just overall, I mean, I really agree, and I have similar concerns with my fellow council members and about sort of the idea of going back in person, and how we will be able to not only sort of restore learning, but also how to be able to, one of my biggest concerns is how we're going to be able to avoid sort of that compensatory approach and that teachers may take when we are maybe fully back in person or whatever it may be. And I recognize that over time, like teachers have sort of, like in fall semester, we started off sort of slow because we figured that, oh, we'll come back spring semester and we can just go. And now that teachers have recognized that that's may not be the case for us, I can feel, and many of my like fellow peers also have recognized that like there's a lot more pressure and a lot of work that's been loaded on because we've had to sort of slow down from the past. And one of my biggest worries is sort of if we're feeling this pressure right now, what will it be like for next year? And how will teachers be able to react, or how will, I guess, like the pressure that teachers have to be able to maintain and meet the standards for whatever testing we may have, how will that be reflected on students? And so one of, I guess, sort of what I'm getting to is the idea that I really appreciate and I really like the idea of a constructivist approach for being able to learn through experiences. I think that's so important for, especially for younger kids. But one other thing that I feel like would really help myself and my peers, like, I guess, feel understood and more motivated throughout school would be if we were able to have a time purely for like socialization or getting to just hear others' experiences, like having maybe a 20-minute block during class or whatever it may be, whatever works for schools, to be able to just relax and reconnect with our fellow classmates. I feel like that would be that is so important, especially for younger kids, but also really important for older kids too, because we're all in a sense doing this on our own. And by being able to reconnect, we'll have that sort of source of support. So that's pretty much what I had to say, but I really appreciate you listening.
Yeah, thank you. I really love that point, and I hope that our school leaders across the state hear that clearly, that that's those kinds of human connections between our students and with our staff members and our students is what people really want and need right now. I think, just even within our own organization here at the Kentucky Department of Education, there are really very few people at our building most days, usually, 5 to 10 people that are working in this space, most everyone else working at home. But when we get to a place where we can get people together, one of the first things I'm going to do as an employer is find an opportunity or create an opportunity where we can get our people together to catch up with each other and get to know each other for the new employees that we have, to build that sense of community and connection. So that's something that I'm planning on doing as an employer, but I think it's something that we should all plan on doing as communities, restoring those human connections that really have been we've been missing. I think there certainly will be some kind of content knowledge learning gap or loss. I think predictable that will happen. But what's not calculated is the human connection learning loss. And so that also has to be mitigated. It has to be made up for. And I think we have to also acknowledge that our kids gain some experiences through this, like the executive function, self-management, technology know-how. I mean, our students, I think, will emerge from this experience having gone through learning under COVID-19 with some tools in their tool belt that they wouldn't otherwise have had. I mean, my 8-year-old daughter today, she can she can write her schedule on her whiteboard and organize what meetings she needs to go into and get into Zoom meetings. That's pretty incredible for an 8-year-old to do that. Now, she's really fortunate. She's got her mom, who's also a teacher there with her, but she's autonomous. She can do a lot of that. So I think we shouldn't undervalue that even though students have missed out on content experiences and human relation experiences, they've also gained some skills that they wouldn't otherwise have.
All right. So real quick before I'm going to go to Michaela next, but I wanted to mention Rohit's comment in the chat about perhaps partnering with parks and museums and attractions, maybe at a reduced cost. And maybe this is something that districts could look at doing, and maybe as a partnership. So just wanted to bring that out as a possible discussion point.
Yeah, we've suggested that, and in the guidance document that we have putting out to districts, it suggests these exact sorts of activities and paying for them. And then there's an incentive from KDE, a financial incentive for districts to do just that.
Okay. All right. Up next, Michaela.
I just wanted to say that I'm a student at Kentucky School for the Deaf. I'm an African American student, and I'm also deaf. And so, sometimes it's just a struggle to fit in with my classmates, because I also attend a hearing school in my home district. And so I struggle with, I'm an African American woman. I'm also a deaf student. I'm surrounded by hearing students here. I'm taking virtual school at KSD. And, we struggle a lot with different prejudices. And so, because I'm deaf and because I'm Black. And so I just wanted to say that, that's something that I would like you guys to think about. We just miss out on so much anyways, because we're deaf. And so a lot of students are isolated at home without anybody to talk with, and their families, because maybe their families don't know sign language. They can't communicate with them. It's very limited in the access that we have in order to talk to our friends. And so I just want you guys to keep that in mind and have some perspective on that, as that is something that deaf students and myself deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, Michaela, I really appreciate that. It's something that's really been troubling me throughout this whole pandemic experience, coming into Kentucky and learning about KSB and KSD being really shut down to any in-person experiences. And we have a lot of residential students, that travel from around the state and then make their home at those two schools. But during this, we've had no students on campus. We know that there's huge variability in what supports students have at home, what their family can provide, what their communities can provide. And I've really been concerned about the lower engagement levels that we know we have out of students that are enrolled in those two schools, and how, the reason that they're in KSB and KSD is because they require a different set of supports than they're able to get at home and in their community. I'm excited about, we're going to be able to get both of those schools open for in-person experiences starting next week. So there's some progress that we're making on that. We even have some students that are coming back early this week to get, if they have special considerations, to support them in returning to that in-person experience. But it has been frustrating because every time it felt like we were getting close to being able to restore those in-person services, the virus would spike, or we'd have a new health order that would make it more difficult to do that. But I'm excited. I think we're going to get there. But I want to acknowledge the point that you made, that students at KSB and KSD, and really kids with disabilities across the state, we've got a lot of work to do to try and support them.
Yes, sir. You're right.
Thank you. Going over to Eastern Kentucky, Cade Scott.
Yeah, I have a couple of things I wanted to touch on, and then one of them is something that Michaela just mentioned and some others have about community and inclusion, because I think that is really a huge part of the disengagement. Floyd County just switched back to, they gave an option for people to come back 2 days a week in person, and actually a lot of students have not wanted to take advantage of that, which for safety and personal reasons, is obviously very acceptable and fine. But a lot of it is coming from, they feel content to stay at home and not like go back to the school because they don't feel like they're getting any positive benefit going back, whether that be through like enhanced educational opportunities at school or because they don't feel like they're going to school and getting like a good community and good engagement there. So I think that like whether we're talking about going back to school now, doing any summer programs, or what next year is going to look like there really needs to be a big focus on building community and making sure that we're taking the time to, I mean, obviously address the learning loss, but also address the loss of social contact and like the degradation of a lot of our schools' communities. That's really big here. And then with what we're doing for prom and graduation, I think all three schools in the county or the high schools are doing a prom and a graduation, but every event is outside towards the end of April or really early in May. And they're doing, for graduation, they're doing like two different ones. They're keeping the like parade, drive-through graduation thing that we did last year. And then they're doing like a really watered down outside in-person one where you can only have so many. And then they're with the parade, they're doing that in case you don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I think those are great examples of how a community can respond to this. And you should, I believe, still continue forward with those rites of passage and events and ceremonies that we really want and students deserve for the spring. We just have to be careful about how we do that. So I really appreciate what you said about how they're being thoughtful about that and also being creative. And I think we'll see some things that we learned from graduations last fall or even last spring, things that we've learned about how to manage COVID through the course of this past year that will carry forward. And we'll see some cross-pollination of ideas, good ideas around experiences that districts can create for students. So I think we're going to get there, and I think we can have safe experiences and meaningful experiences for students in our community.
All right. Thank you both. Going over to Breathitt County and Caleb.
Well, hello. So first of all, let me say I do have some ideas here that I'd like to share. Dr. Glass, I did have the opportunity to read your statement this morning before I joined the meeting, and I want to thank you for advocating for Kentucky students always. You know, to me, this issue is a lot more than just a loss of learning. You know, we have here in Breathitt County, you know, an economic issue that we're dealing with as families have lost their jobs, families have lost loved ones, on top of course, the pandemic. And so, you know, here in rural communities like Breathitt County, schools are really at the core of the community, and a lot of the community-based functions occur through or with help from school here in Breathitt County. And so I just think it's really important to keep that in mind and to also look at ways we can incorporate different community partners as we, you know, work to address all of the issues at hand. And also, I think it's really important for teachers, school personnel, whether it be administration or just in general, to really meet students with compassion and grace, because, you know, as I mentioned in, you know, with Dr. Sweeney's presentation earlier, I actually had said, you know, students have been trying to survive on top of, you know, learning and other school-based activities. And so there are a lot of issues here. And I guess in a way, I'm just sort of adding more or highlighting more rather than actually providing solutions. But I really just felt obligated to share that. And, you know, human connection is really important. And so I would really like to see, you know, those community-based efforts brought in to help students who, you know, have dealt with social isolation and that type of thing. So thank you.
Great points, Caleb. I think I really encourage, and if I were still a superintendent, I would be working on thinking through really a scan of what resources and supports were in my community, from faith-based to church experiences, nonprofits in the community. Do I have a recreation center? Do I have a strong library program? What parks, or either state or local parks, do I have available? What are my coaches and sports coaches and programs doing, and how can they be expanded to involve more students in those? What's happening with my art and music programs? How can they be expanded to involve more students in those? Do I have a higher education partner or a community college that's in my community that could expand opportunities for students and families? I think there's variability in that in every community. You're going to have some places are going to have Red River Gorge in their backyard, and some places don't. So there's variability in what your community has, but every community's got something. And every community should be thinking about how can we stitch together all of these experiences or opportunities for kids and make them available to our families, make it easy, and encourage our families and our kids to take advantage of them, either by waiving fees or paying fees or handling transportation or feeding students, removing all the logistical challenges that come with that. But I think it's a great point. Every community's got some web or network of those supports they could put together.
All right, it looks like we have no more hands up on this area unless anybody else. We have one more item because we did kind of jump over and talk about, or we have two more items, but the last one's just kind of touching base on the virtual listening tours. The next item is going to be on testing, which we've kind of touched a little bit about. You all wanted to have a little bit of an update on where we are with the spring 2021 testing. So I know some of you all are juniors and will be dealing with the ACT. And then, of course, we have the statewide testing. So I will go ahead and let Dr. Glass.
Yeah, and I think, Tony, we also, we talked about future guidance on end of year activities too. So really our next couple of agenda items, I think we talked about a lot, but just to go a little deeper on the assessment question, we did just last night, I think probably around 5 o'clock yesterday, maybe 6, we got a letter, state chiefs around the country got a letter from, I'm not even sure the individual's title, a person that's authorized to make this decision, because we don't have a Secretary of Education that's been confirmed yet. So I would attribute the decision to the Biden administration, because I'm sure this is the first major decision that the U.S. Department of Education is having to make. And really, it's a continuation of what was Betsy DeVos's position, which is states should plan on continuing to test. They did offer waivers on accountability. And just for clarity, what that means is, so we have the testing that students take, and that leads to results. So how many students are proficient in schools and districts. And so those results are used in the state's accountability system, the sort of grade schools and designates which schools are struggling or have an indication that the school needs to be turned around or is in trouble. So that's accountability. So you have testing and accountability, sort of two concepts. The federal government basically said last night, you have to test. You can seek a waiver from accountability. So we will have to give an assessment in Kentucky, but we do not have to use the results from that assessment to rank and rate and punish or reward schools using our accountability system. So what we're going to do, that's largely consistent with what we'd been planning, because we expected this was a likely position that the federal government would take. So we really have been planning for this all along. What we've done with the test is we've removed as many items as we possibly can, so the test is as short as possible. And we've expanded the testing window to give our districts as much time as possible to give the assessment. So they've got more flexibility in when students take it. So that's the flexibility we're gonna be able to offer on the testing, and we will also seek that waiver on accountability, and I expect that we'll get it, where we don't have to use the results from this test to sort of rate or rank schools. That just doesn't make any sense at all if you were to force us on this, because the data is going to be so disrupted. We can't ensure a reliable test result when a student may be taking a test at home. We don't know who's really taking the test, so you can't proctor the test environment appropriately. You'll have huge disruptions in the numbers of students who take the tests in person versus who may or may not take it remotely. So I think all of that leads to we're just going to have a not very good data, which in the statement that I made, that was the point that I raised, is we know that this data is going to be problematic. We know that it's not going to be very useful. And because state data takes 3 months to get results back, it's not really very useful instructionally either. There are much better ways to gather this information, and that's mostly through using local testing systems that districts already have in place that give them instant information on how their students are doing. So I would have preferred the federal government to allow states to empower districts to use their local assessment frameworks. We could still report back to parents on how they're doing, but the results would be much faster, much more meaningful. And coming back in March, many of the first experiences our students will have with the very limited days that we have left of in-person instruction is going to be spent on testing. So I think that's unfortunate too. Just all the disruptions that we've had to learning, now we're going to add this one in as well. So I'm really disappointed in the decision that's come down from the Biden administration. I do understand it, and I understand the pressures to keep testing going and why it's made. And I don't think that it comes from a desire to do harm or anything to students. I know that it really comes from a place of trying to make sure that all students are assessed so that we have data on learning gaps and that attention is paid to students from different disadvantaged backgrounds. So I understand the rationale behind it. I just disagree with the decision because of the disruption that it's going to create, and I don't think the data is going to be very useful. And I think there are just better ways to go at getting this information than continuing large-scale state summative testing right now. So that's kind of where we are on testing. I'd be interested in what your perspectives are, any thoughts that you have about the Biden administration's decision. And I don't know, Tony, if you want to put up the statement that we made on this so students can see that. And then I'll also look for the letter that came from the federal government. Maybe we can share that with the students too. But, so maybe, Tony, you could bring up the statement. I'll look for the letter from the U.S. Department of Education. Then let's get some student comments along the way too.
Sure. I think I posted it in the chat. Can you just confirm if it's in there for me?
Yep. There it is. Okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And so that's the statement that we've issued on that. And we do, so just to also just to add a little nugget in there while you all are kind of thinking, we do have a waiver in on the TSI status. So and that's the current waiver that we have in, and we have a public comment on that. And those are schools that are the bottom 5% performing. So I know one of you had requested, I know some of you are at schools or districts that have TSI schools. So we have requested a waiver for those. All right, and then Dr. Glass just put in the chat just some information from EdWeek. It's an article, you should be able to access that. That just kind of gives you a rundown on what the guidance from the Ed Department said. And again, if you all have any, thoughts on testing or in particular, raise your hand. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We'll be having a lot of conversations with our superintendents. We have obviously a superintendent webcast today from 2 to 4, and we're always putting out revised guidance documents and such on areas like this. And then in the meantime, I can go up. I was going to let you know while you all think about that too, that we did open, me see, open this up here. All right, I'm having an issue with the PowerPoint, so I'm gonna have to go, there we go. Rhonda, did you wanna go, I saw that you have a comment in there.
No, Tony, I just wanted to, I think you said TSI was the bottom 5%, and I think that was just probably a slip. It's CSI.
Yes, sorry
Comprehensive
about
support
that.
schools are the bottom 5, and TSI are how groups of students perform. And do they perform as low as all students within the CSI schools? What's
Yes.
called the all student group. So I just put that clarification in for you.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. That's what I get
No
for
problem.
trying to pull up a PowerPoint and try to get everything all together at one time.
Major multitasking. No, you're fine.
Yes, it's good times around here as always. So, all right. Well, it looks, if you guys, and we will have some opportunities in the exit slip as well. It does look like, Caleb, you've raised your hand, but I'll have some opportunities for you all to look over the statement and things that are going on, because we would like to have your feedback on that as well. Caleb, go ahead.
So I've been trying to think of a way to almost sugarcoat this, but there really isn't one. I wouldn't be here today without the threats from a few years ago of potentially defunding some of our public schools, of diverting funding. And, you know, test scores in the past have sort of been used as this justification for that if we put funding here instead of in public schools, you know, we'll see improvement. I agree with you, Dr. Glass, that this data is going to be problematic. And one of my concerns is that it could lead to some harsh legislative reforms, almost punishments. And I guess I have a question with that. You know, will Kentucky, with this testing, will Kentucky be ranked, you know, on the nationwide level, on the federal level? How will that look? You know, just kind of provide some ideas there if you don't mind.
Well, what the federal government has said is that states can be waived out of using that data to rank our schools from the state level, and then through sort of the official mechanisms that we have at the state agency to determine which schools are underperforming. We shouldn't use this data for that purpose. That certainly will not keep anyone from taking what will be required to be publicly available data and doing that themselves. I think that's to be predicted, both within the state, within communities, across states, across the nation. And I think that anyone that is seeking a way to embarrass, punish, shame school systems through this pandemic, the data is going to be there for them to do that. Of course, with the conversations around you know, private schools and privatization of education, we don't have any data on them, so they're not subject to the same level of accountability that we have. But I think certainly you should expect certain foundations, certain political organizations with an agenda to defund and dismantle public education to use this as an opportunity.
All right, looks like Anna, you can go next.
Hi, so if I understood everything correctly, in my head and in my opinion, I don't see the value in the testing, especially because we were just discussing how schools are behind in curriculum and learning, and how students and teachers are struggling with that. And so it doesn't make sense to me to take time out of what we're already missing to prepare for a test that doesn't even have to be recorded like score wise. So that doesn't really make sense to me. If it was, I just think it's a lot of pressure on students also, like, and teachers, because they have to take time to prepare the students. And I know my school, they do ACT boot camps, and that's kind of a big thing in our school because it allows students to come together and really work together to prepare for the ACT. However, it's starting this week and the ACT is next week, I believe. And so that's just not enough time and not enough preparation. And it's really hard for teachers to kind of set aside time to also prepare students. So I think it's just not the right timing, and it's just a lot of extra pressure and stress for the educational community.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm just watching some of the responses that I'm getting from educators and students and people in communities on social media just in the wake of this news. And I think it's your points are largely being confirmed by what others are saying. There are a few folks that, you know, are happy that the testing is going to happen, but the vast majority of what I'm seeing tends to come down on that this is ill-advised, it's not the right time, and the data is not going to be very useful to us.
Lauren Little.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I also don't agree with the decision. I also don't see the value in the standardized testing, just like what Anna was saying. That puts a lot more stress on students, and it's going to impact their mental health more than it already has been. So I feel like it's not the right timing.
Right. Well, and I think, you know, going back to, it seems like the rationale behind it was that this data is necessary to understand where students are, so that instructional supports could be provided. I agree with that rationale, but because the test takes so long to get any data back from, it's not really a useful instructional test. It's what we call a long cycle assessment. So it's something that you do at the end of the year, and then you've got an even further lag or delay until you get results back. There are assessments that can be given to students where you get instant results back, or assessments that teachers can design and give and get instant results back from how their students are doing. So I just think that even the purpose that's being put forth behind continuing with testing, the data is not really going to be very useful for that purpose.
Oh, looks like I was muted. Sorry there. Go back up to Trevin.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, just to bounce off what everybody else has said, really, I don't agree with it because, I mean, although we're going to have a shortened test, instead of trying to catch up, we're going to be trying to prepare for a test, and that is time that could be used to actually catch our students back up, because we've discussed a long time in this meeting about how far we have fallen behind. And I mean, I just don't see the purpose in spending 2 weeks or a week to prepare for a test that's not even going to be, hopefully not going to be held, we're going to be held accountable for. And I just think that we should use that time to catch our students back up and just to try to get back to where we need to be.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one of the things that was in the statement that I made was just all of the disruptions to learning that students have already experienced. And now we're finally at scale going to be able to, you know, start restoring in-person learning across the state here in March. At the same time, we're going to have this testing right in the middle of that. It just seems that the timing is ill-advised too. To the credit of the Biden administration, they did suggest and offer that states could have a great deal of flexibility in when testing could take place, even delaying it to the beginning of next school year, if states wanted to do that. But again, I think it goes back to what's the purpose of the assessment. If the purpose of the assessment is for instructional purposes, so we're going to gather information on this to determine what students are missing and where they're missing, and then provide supports based on that. Again, even if you wait till the beginning of next year, you're going to be waiting several months beyond from when the test is given before any results are turned back. So it's not a very instructionally sensitive assessment. That's really not its purpose. This is an accountability, an assessment system that is designed for accountability, that I think the federal government is confusing the accountability assessment with an instructional assessment.
All right, Layla Hayes. Layla, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
I can.
Hi, so I do agree that the testing would have a negative effect on a lot of students' mental health, as I feel like a lot of us already know that we are behind on content and just generally on where we should be right now. But I feel like it could have a positive effect. I know that Dr. Glass mentioned that it could be used to get a sense of like exactly where students are, and maybe that could help provide resources to them. But I was just wondering if it was feasible to get that faster test with faster results that Dr. Glass mentioned, because he was talking about how it normally takes about like 3 months or so to get those results, and by then those results are just not even useful at that point. So do you think that is it feasible to alter the test in any way?
We have Rhonda on here. She will be able to speak this more clearly than I can. We have made some adjustments to the test to try and make it shorter and simpler and more straightforward, and remove some of the items that make it take a long time to take and to score. So, Rhonda, are you still on and can talk about?
I am,
yeah.
Dr. Glass. And that's exactly correct. We have shortened the test. It would be an hour or less for content. And most of you know that our test has been considerably longer. We've also tried to make them be machine scoreable items so that we can turn results around quicker. So I don't have in front of me the exact time frame, but the goal is to get results back quicker. And I don't believe we have anything that would have to be hand scored. So I'll double check that, and we can have that available for you to be sure the next round as we start talking about the test with more detail.
All right. Another question or another comment, Anastasia.
I completely agree with what everybody has said so far, and kind of adding on to when I went back in person, I believe it was in October, sophomores, we took the pre-ACT, and though it's different than state testing, we still haven't gotten our results back for that. And so I think having the normal test would definitely just put added stress on kids. Just waiting for results, being of the fact that this year is taking longer to get things done anyways. And so having the shortened test, I think, is especially good for middle school kids who are taking the test, and just allowing them to focus on what is actually on the test and not stressing about, I don't know if this is going to be on the test or not. So I think shortening it is definitely a good way to go. And I think the way you addressed what the Biden administration had said is a really good way to address it. It's clear what you guys are trying to do and how you guys are trying to help the students. And I completely agree with your guys' decision to shorten it and ask for flexibility.
Thanks so much, Anastasia. We wish we had more flexibility that we could offer, but I want to give credit to the assessment team at KDE. They really expected this is where we end up, and so the plan that we've been working on all along is closely aligned with what the decision that ultimately came down from the federal government. So even though it's not the outcome that we'd hoped for, the flexibility that we'd hoped for, we are prepared for this, and that's in large part due to Rhonda and her team and their foresight into expecting this is where we'd end up.
All right. Well, thank you all for the great discussion on that. And I think we've addressed the guidance that will be forthcoming, hopefully from our team. I know our superintendents have also asked for some guidance on the prom and the graduations. I'm not sure if the commissioner wants to address that briefly again before we move on. Just to a brief discussion on the virtual town hall and the important role that you all are playing on that. And then I can jump over to that if you want to. Looks like we've got another person joining us here. Hold on. Commissioner, did you want to add anything on that guidance? I'm not entirely sure what the time frame is on that. But we all obviously know here at the department the time is of the essence since it is late February.
Yeah, well, I know that there have been exchanges going back and forth with public health around what what that might look like. I don't have anything in terms of a firm date or when guidance will be issued, but I think it will start with where we were in terms of guidance for events, graduations and things that we had last summer or last fall. So that'll be the starting point from it, plus what we've learned up to this point. So it's in the works. We're thinking about it and working on it, but I'm not sure when that's going to come out.
Okay. Great. All right. So then moving on to our last agenda item, I just wanted to give you a brief update on the commissioner's listening tour, and obviously the big role that you all are playing. So after our meeting, I guess it was about a week or so ago, to kind of give you some of the initial details, I sent you out a link to kind of sign up for some availability. As you know, we are going to do these they're going to be done via Zoom. And we are working on trying to come up with, still working on more of the planning phases on how that all is going to work. But ideally, what's going to happen is people are pre-registering for these events, the general public, which includes you as a student and your parents and your community members, people at your school. We want everybody to be able to join these events. They are going to be obviously from April 6th through May 6th. You all have the dates on those. And I just wanted to make sure that you all have signed up for the dates to so I can start kind of putting names with which dates so I can kind of fill in those blanks. Your role is going to be vitally crucial and important to us with facilitating this virtual tour. I'm so happy and thrilled that you all said yes when we asked you if you would be interested in helping with us. I've also reached out to a couple of other student voice teams across the state. They've also said yes. It is a huge lift, and but again, so very important that you all will help us lead these breakout rooms. So ideally, what will happen is, Dr. Glass will lead off the virtual tour. Each of them, each of them will be about 90 minutes long. He will lead them off with about a 5 to 7 minute TED Talk. We will go into breakout rooms, about 15 to 20 people per breakout room. Each student will be teamed with a Team KDE adult staff member so that you all can kind of co-facilitate together. And I don't want to use that word to scare you, because really it's just leading a conversation in a room. And we have questions that we are working on finalizing. And each of these questions are just based on the common goal of what are your aspirations for the Commonwealth's K-12 education system. So it seems like it's a simple question, but we're trying to pull a lot out of these virtual listening tour dates to gather a lot of feedback for all of our offices. So you just heard from Rhonda, and she's working on a lot of work with assessment and accountability. And obviously, Thomas, Dr. Woods-Tucker, and equity, and work that I do in communications. And you've all met, Kelly Foster and the work that she does at school improvement. All of us are looking for ways on how we can move the department forward and better support our schools. So these listening tour dates that you're going to be hearing a lot more, Dr. Glass is going to be doing a lot of media stops and tours to kind of promote these. This is really important work that we're going to be doing, and these tours are quite different from any other listening tour that the Department of Education has done before. So really what I need your help in is to share the information with your friends and within your communities. Each of you are strategically by design placed throughout the state, since you all represent different Supreme Court districts throughout the Commonwealth. And we really want to see everyone at these virtual town halls. The beauty of the virtual town halls is that you don't have to drive to them. You can just sign in your living room or wherever you want to sign in to listen and partake. And so I'm going to go ahead and put the link to sign up and give us your availability. You can help us either be a breakout room co-host, to help lead the conversations, or we are also helping, looking for people to help us take notes. So if you have not signed up or you know other students, great student leaders that might be interested, please let me know. And I will leave it at that if you all have any questions on the virtual town hall. Looks like I do have a hand raised. And I can't see who it is. Is it Caleb?
Yeah, so let me just say I do want to backtrack for just a second before we get on the tour. I had one question about the previous agenda topic, and I'm going to ask you, Dr. Glass, or Tony, if you have ideas here. I mean, I can understand the reasoning behind the decision, and I'm just struggling because it really worries me. You know, is there an existing channel of communication for student leaders to reach out and express concerns to the Biden administration that you all are aware of? Or, you know, is there a way to connect us to, you know, education decision makers at that federal level?
Yeah, there are a couple, and we will follow up with you on what the best point of contact is at the U.S. Department of Education to let your perspective be known to them. The other avenue, of course, is to reach out to your congressional delegation, Senator Paul, Senator McConnell, or whichever congressional representative in the area that you live in. Those are all avenues to make your voice heard. We might see some kind of congressional intervention on this, but I doubt it given all the things that Congress is managing right now. But certainly you can make your perspective known. And honestly, I would be surprised if they reversed it at this point. But I think they should get an earful from students who are going to be taking these exams. I think that's appropriate.
Well, and I would like to just throw it out there that, you know, we do have space available on Kentucky Teacher for you all to write an op-ed. And I'd be willing to, you know, if you all, you know, your voice is valid for this or any platform. If you all want to submit, you know, some writing to me and we can get that published, help get that published for you, just let me know what we can do. So I think that's an option that we've discussed on other options as well. You know, to keep that always option open for writing or any other method that you wish to express your viewpoints. All right.
And Tony, I just saw I'll put the link in here, but here's a quote from a teacher who was writing about this subject. Sorry, it's kind of hard to read. Test results gathered under lousy circumstances, lacking in detail, and unavailable for months will not be worth the time sacrificed to collect them. So that's one teacher's assessment of this, and I'll put the article that came from in the chat as well. But I think that's a great idea to have the students pull together an op-ed on their perspective on this. So I think if that's something that this group wanted to pull together a position statement on that, just so that this group's collective perspective on it is made known, as a great way for you to interact on this issue.
Absolutely. And you all can, I'll put a spot in there on the exit slip. And if those of you say yes and want to work on collaborating that, we can help you pull that together and get it into a statement. Soyana, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, hello. Kind of going a little bit back to the listening tour. I know you said the data that we'll receive will be heavily considered in how the department moves on. And so I know you touched on about it in previous meetings, but I just wanted to make sure, how are you prioritizing kind of reaching those harder to reach students, those harder to reach families, and making sure you get to hear their voices in these town halls, and kind of making it more equitable for all of Kentucky? Is that something that you could work with Dr. Woods Tucker on, or kind of just to make sure that we retrieve the voices of all that Kentucky education has to offer?
Yeah, thanks, Liana. One of the things that we're hopeful for, and then this is another maybe positive impact, positive pandemic outcome, is that we're a lot more proficient as a country and across the board around interacting electronically. And so previous commissioners have conducted these meetings in person. Attendance at them has been spotty in some places. I mean, some of these events only had 20-some people show up for a whole region of the state. So we do think that may have been related to an equity issue around some people have time to go to an in-person evening meeting and some people don't, or they have obligations or constraints that make it difficult for them. So we're interested in seeing if conducting these virtually may help us be more representative of the state and the perspectives in the state, because we've removed some barriers like transportation, timing, childcare, those kinds of things are not, they don't go away, but they're easier to manage when someone can do this from their phone or their own home or listening through their car audio system. So there's more options available for people. In addition, Tony's just been on an all points blitz about getting the word out on this in as many avenues as she can. We will continue that. We certainly will look for working through our district partners and our co-ops and sharing this with their communities. I think oftentimes the best connection to historically underserved groups that we don't hear a lot from is from our school districts. They're the ones that have direct connection pipeline to a lot of these families and students, and oftentimes the school district is a trusted source of information for them. So I think we'll rely on keep pounding the pavement using all of our communications channels, but also work with our districts to make sure that these events are known in communities.
And I would just like to caveat just a little bit on that too, and mention particularly our English language learners as well, because that has been something I've really been here lately, kind of pounding the pavement on, in particular with this tour as well, because I want to make sure that, and as well as with our deaf and hard of hearing population, I want to make sure loud and clear that, we are going to be offering, ASL interpretation at these forums. So hopefully that our deaf community will know. I know that doesn't solve all of the problems with trying to, understand everything that's taking place. But certainly we're making efforts to make that accessible so that we can hear those voices as well. But then also our English language learners, because that is a good portion of our student population, and those families also we need to hear those voices as well. And so while I can't unfortunately get everything translated into every single language that is spoken into the state, I am looking to get some of the questions that we have translated at least into the top 4 and have that translated. I have been fortunate to secure some funding for that. So you will be seeing that. I've even talked, I think I've even got Dr. Glass convinced to appear on some Spanish radio to get that. I'm not sure how he's gonna, he said yes, so we'll see how that goes. But just to get the word out, you'll be hearing a lot about this over the next month or so as we prepare for this. But this is why I really need your help, because you are in the districts. You are with your fellow students. You're with people in your buildings. You're with your teachers. You're with your counselors. I need you all to help us spread the word on these virtual tours. We can spread the word with adults, and we can, I can pass it along to students that I'm familiar with, but you are the heart of what we do, and you're in our buildings. Whether it's virtual or not virtual, you are there. You're the heart and soul of what we do, and that is why I really need your help with this. So whatever you all can do to help get that word out to all of our student populations would be greatly, greatly appreciated, and let me know what I can do to help make that happen. All right, thank you for that question. If anybody else has any other questions about the virtual tour, I did put the sign up in there. Again, I will assure you, Anastasia, I see you have your hand up. I'm sorry. Is that still from before? We are going to have to close up here in just a minute or so.
Oh, no, I just had a quick question. Do you have a link for like an article that talks a little bit more about this with the link to sign up that I could send out?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Hopefully in that Google link, if not, I can put it in the chat here.
Okay,
or hopefully one of my other teammates that might be listening on can do that for me while I'm trying to multitask here. But yes, it could be something just for you to explain what's going on, why it's important, kind of what you would get out of this. And again, there's multiple ways, there will be several questions, to be part of the conversation. So whether they participate, in a part of the breakout rooms, or they participate in some kind of interactive polling during the breakout room, there's going to be lots of opportunities for interaction. So hopefully, our hopes are really high for this, and hope that we see a lot of interaction on that. So thank you, Jacob. There's the Kentucky teacher link on the tour. And again, if you all need any additional help on that, just let me know, and any help you can provide. Rhonda had had a quick comment. Let me just make sure. She just wanted to say she did a double check on the shortened form of test for spring of 2021. She did say that there are going to be a small number of items that will require shorthand scoring. So just a quick clarification on that, just so you all have the right information on that. So, all right, with that, I will let you know that I will send out an exit slip this time. It'll be coming here shortly. I do have a superintendent's webcast that is going to be going on this afternoon between 2 and 4. I hope to get that exit slip to you before 2 o'clock, but I will toss this back to the commissioner and have him exit this webcast.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Great conversation. Appreciate all the perspectives, and I look forward to, as a next step, seeing what you all come up with on a statement around this testing question that I know was on a lot of your minds, and also appreciate all the statements that were made around the importance of authentic and engaging, meaningful learning experiences for students as we return to greater in-person instruction throughout the spring and into next fall. Thanks everybody for being with us. We're grateful to spend this time with you.